everybody, for coming to the Aaron Torres Podcast YouTube page. If you could do me a quick favor, see that little subscribe button at the bottom of your screen? Go ahead, click that subscribe button. Really does help our channel grow, our audience grow, and I really do appreciate it more than you know. So click that subscribe button. Appreciate your support. Now, here's the video that you came here for. I have noticed something very interesting about how the college football calendar works September, October, November, December. That's this, is that September, it is the time of optimism, the time of excitement. Everybody loves their team. Everybody loves their coach. Everybody is going undefeated and winning the national championship. But why we love college football, my voice just cracked there. I'm so fired up. Why we love college football is because of the chaos that it creates, the rumors, the innuendo, the message board stuff. And it's really October, this time of year, about mid-October to mid-December, that the craziness of college football really shows itself, right? We've got coaching hirings and firings. We got transfer portal stuff. We got rumors. We got innuendo. And then, of course, on the field, some teams that are actually good are playing for a national championship. And so I bring it up because we're starting to get towards that time of year where it's no longer just about who's winning and losing, but what's going on behind the scenes, who's struggling, who could be in trouble, all that good stuff. And so I bring it up because on Monday's show, we talked about Texas A&M, we talked about Jimbo Fisher, and you don't need me to repeat everything that we said. Texas A&M is now 4-3. They've lost 2 in a row. They're going into their bye, and it is just completely trending in the wrong direction, right? They went 5-7 last year, and at this point, you can't really sit here and say it was a blip on the radar. Now that they're sitting at 4-3, they still have not won a road game since the 2021 season. And Jimbo Fisher has, how about this? He's 9-10 since the start of last year, and he himself has not beaten a ranked opponent as head coach of Texas A&M on the road since he took over. So that's a convoluted stat. Let me say it again. Jimbo Fisher, since he took over, has not beaten a ranked opponent on the road. Oh, by the way, 9-10 since the start of last year. And so listen, there are reasons that they are struggling. Connor Wigman is hurt. I get all that. But it is clear this program is trending in the wrong direction. And I think the big question has become over the last 2 or 3 weeks, is it actually possible that he gets let go given that massive contract? And I think if you talk to most people, the answer is, they're just going to have to eat it, because the bottom line is Jimbo Fisher signed that extension 2 years ago that paid him $90 million guaranteed. And that if you fired him after this year, his buyout is $77 million. $77 million, fully guaranteed, would be owed every penny. So it seems like an impossible contract to get out. And I think it's kind of been like an ancillary conversation in college football. Could you actually get rid of Jimbo Fisher? Well, I bring it up because on Tuesday, one of the most well-respected reporters in all of college football, Bruce Feldman of The Athletic, put out a report, and the headline was pretty clear. Bottom line, if Texas A&M needs to get out of that contract, Bruce Feldman believes that they could raise the money. I want to read you the quotes from the report so that there's no confusion, no innuendo, no Torres said this or Torres implied that. No. I want to read you exactly what Bruce Feldman wrote on Tuesday. Here is what he wrote. He writes a little bit about everything up till this point, but then he says they are paying him gobs of money with the expectation that this program will compete for national championships, and he just lost his 8th straight road game. The Aggies have lost 2 in a row and have dropped 9 of their last 12 games against Power 5 opponents. They didn't even make a bowl game last year, despite a roster loaded with 5-star talent, and that was regarded by the online recruiting services as the highest-ranked recruiting class of all time. He's had 1 good season in College Station, 9-1 in the pandemic season. Since then, the Aggies have not finished a season ranked in the AP poll. This is where it gets interesting. His hire of this offseason of Bobby Petrino has been underwhelming. The Aggies are number 10 in the SEC in offense and dead last in red zone touchdown percentage. As one source told me earlier this season, it's year 6. What is Fisher going to have to do now that'll convince anyone at this point that he can lead them to a national title? What's another 8-4 going to prove? Finally, here is what the money quote is. Texas A&M, I'm told, will find the money to get rid of him if he can't get this thing going. And yes, it absolutely does matter to folks down there that Texas has a chance to be a college football playoff team this year, and that Steve Sarkisian has been on the job for half as long as Jimbo Fisher. So there you have it. From a credible, highly sourced college football reporter, Bruce Feldman. Worked with him a little bit at Fox, know him very loosely, but he's great at what he does. And he says, quote, Texas A&M, I'm told, will find the money to get rid of him if he can't get this thing going. So should we believe the report? Should we believe Bruce Feldman, super highly plugged in guy? Let me say this. Bruce is super plugged in. I trust him. I trust his sources. I will also say that I don't totally believe that unless things completely fall apart, and I'm talking about basically not winning another game the rest of the year. I think they play Arkansas Pine Bluff or something late in the year. But if they don't win another SEC game the rest of the year, then maybe. But I think if he can weather the storm, I do think that he will be back at least for one more year. But let's get into it. Let's break it down. First of all, a couple things. One, Bruce is obviously 100% accurate on just the kind of state of things and the psyche of things at Texas A&M. It is not good. People are not happy. And it's a lot of what I said, a lot of what Bruce said. Bottom line is Jimbo Fisher is not winning the games that he needs to win that a $9 million a year head coach should win. As I said, 8 straight road losses dating back to the 2021 season. 4-3 this year, in a year where last year it was injuries, youth, whatever. This year you're 4-3 overall. And I think the scary thing, if you're A&M, based on what you've seen, what reason is there to believe that some incredible turnaround is coming around? You're sitting at 4-3. You still have road games at LSU and at Ole Miss. And so you do have some winnable games, South Carolina at home, Mississippi State at home. But at the same time, even if you win those two and you win the FCS game late in the year, if you lose at Ole Miss and you lose at LSU and you're going to be an underdog in both, is 7-5 and 0-4 away from in true road games. Is that the kind of momentum you're looking for? And so I get that perspective. I get that that's not good enough. I also think the point that Bruce brought up is something that I have heard a lot behind the scenes. I have heard that and I don't think it's like, super shocking, but the fact that Texas is coming next year, the fact that Oklahoma is coming next year, the fact that both of them are winning at a super high level, that is not rubbing Aggie fans the right way, and justifiably so. Because the thing is about, first of all, I think everybody knows this, but if you don't know the Texas A&M Texas rivalry, what I can tell you, it is one of those bad, sound like Taylor Swift here, bad blood rivalries. There's some rivalries where, hey, when we're not playing our rival, we root for them every game they play when they're not playing us. That ain't Texas A&M. That ain't Texas. They want the other team to perish and wallow and suffer all the time. And what's been wild is I feel like the rivalry has gotten even more tense as they've been separated with Texas A&M in the SEC and Texas in the Big 12. And that's the crazy part, right? Because that was the thing that Texas A&M could always kind of hang their hat on, even in a down year. Even when things weren't going well under Kevin Sumlin, even when things weren't going well in previous years under Jimbo Fisher, could sit there and say, well, Texas stinks, and we have that recruiting advantage in recruiting. We have that advantage in recruiting, probably the right way to say it, because we're in the SEC. And so we can go to every kid in this state, in this region, in this area and say, you want to play big boy college football? You come here. You want to go play, flag football. You want to go play basketball on turf. You go over to the Big 12. You want to play big boy football, get ready for the NFL. You come to the SEC. Well, now Texas can sell the exact same thing in recruiting. And on top of it, they're winning at a high level. So you talk about a lot of things going in the wrong direction. And I know for a fact there's concern in Aggie land about like, wait a second now, if we're not winning with this roster at this moment in time, we can't let Texas come into this league with some momentum. So that's the argument for, could Jimbo somehow not be here? If it bottoms out, Texas is coming. Like there's a lot of variables there. At the same time, I'll be blunt. I still I don't know that I see it at this exact moment, even if they finish 7-5, even if they lose to Ole Miss, even if they lose to LSU. And we can agree or disagree. We could talk about the quality of the program. They have not been good in these big games. I talked about that on Monday's show. But at the same time, I think there are a couple factors that you have to consider here when you just kind of say, oh, Texas A&M will figure out the money. Well, one, first of all, it's a ton of money, okay? Because what we always have to factor, and I know any fan listening to this understands, is that it's not just $77 million to buy out Jimbo Fisher. One, I'm sure there's other guys on that staff that are under multi-year contracts. Not everybody, but I'm sure there's a few guys, maybe Bobby Petrino. I looked it up. I don't think there's any clarity on if it's a 1-year, 2-year deal for him, but you got to buy out other guys. And then the big thing is, we all know the next head coach, you're going to have to pay $10 million a year. Nobody's coming to the SEC for $4 million a year in this era when, one, you were paying the last guy $9 million, and two, you just paid $77 million to get rid of him. So you're talking about like a $150 million kind of transaction to fire Jimbo Fisher and then bring in the next guy. It's easy to, and I'm not disrespecting Bruce here, but it's easy for a source, a contact on the phone to say, yeah, we'll get the money, we'll figure it out. Well, are you going to then double that money to get the next head coach? Easier said than done. I also think, like, listen, I am not making excuses for Jimbo Fisher, okay? But I do think there are some other variables that A&M is going to consider at the end of this season. Connor Wigman's not healthy. And I know for a fact, I've talked to people down in College Station. There's a faction of people that believes that if Connor Wigman was healthy right now, their starting quarterback to start the year, they would have beaten Bama. They would have beaten Tennessee. Because remember, those were two games. A&M was ahead of both of them at halftime. And we talked about both of them. We talked about the fact that Jimbo was very unaggressive before the half, relying a lot on his defense. And what has become abundantly clear is that he trusts that defense a lot more than that offense. So you lose by 6 to Alabama at home. You lose by a touchdown at Tennessee. And I think there's a belief like, if we have our starting quarterback, we're good to go. We win those games. Oh, by the way, from what I've been told, Connor Wigman is a lightning rod in that locker room in a positive way. Lightning rod can sometimes mean a bad thing. And that guys believe in him. He's the Pied Piper. Guys galvanize around him. And so my understanding is, like, again, I think there is a sizable contingent of people that believe that if Connor Wigman was healthy, that A&M would be sitting at 5-1 right now, 6-1 right now going into the bye. Is it fair? Is it accurate? We'll never know. I'm just telling you what some people think. And lastly, I think that's the part that not enough people are talking about is the players, right? Because I even go back to the preseason. I remember talking about this in July and August. People were like, Torres, what does what does A&M want out of this season? What do they have to do? And what I kept saying was that 2022 recruiting class that many believe was the greatest recruiting class in the history of college football. They are sophomores now. They will be draft eligible juniors next season in 2024. And so so basically in the preseason, I kept saying, people say, oh, what do they expect from him? I said, the bottom line is pretty straightforward. I believe that Texas A&M, the goal is build some momentum from last year, win this year, and then really put yourself in position to be competing at the highest level in 2024 when all those guys are draft eligible juniors. It's clearly not trending that way. But at the same time, let me also say this, and I think it's an important note, is that if you fire Jimbo Fisher, just remember, this ain't 1993. This ain't 2003. This isn't even 2013. You fire Jimbo Fisher, there will be probably, you fire him today, by tomorrow morning, my guess is there's a dozen guys that are that are NFL caliber players that are in the portal by tomorrow. By the way, guess what? A lot of those guys on this bye week are at home right now. They're already being told by mom, by dad, by high school coach, by agent, by whoever, like, you got to get out of there. This thing ain't working out. So can you imagine if Jimbo Fisher is actually fired? Can you imagine the talent flood that would go into the portal, let alone the 2024 high school class, which is top 5 in the country? I can't even imagine how much talent would be in that portal. And so again, my gut tells me Texas A&M, they're going to keep Jimbo Fisher, not even because of the money. They don't want to lose all those players. You lose all those guys, then it's like you don't want to bring in somebody. And by the way, who's going to take the job when they have to start over from scratch? Really, and I want to wrap because I'm going long and I still want to get to some Urban Meyer comments and stuff like that. The only real scenario I could see where Jimbo Fisher gets fired, one, it has to be a complete bottom out. I think 5-7, losing every SEC game left on the schedule, which would include South Carolina at home and Mississippi State at home. That would be step one. And step two, the only way you fire him, I think you have to have the next guy lined up and ready to go essentially before you even fire him. This has been done before. I hate to use this example, Aggies fans, but the one that comes to mind, remember when Tom Herman was fired at Texas and it was like a month after the season? Everyone's like, where did that come from? And then boom, like within 2 hours, Texas announced that Steve Sarkisian was its next head coach. And so that's the only scenario I could see, because you can't do a true traditional coaching search and leave things open and let all those players, leave all those players open to be, poached and recruited and whatever. People are still trying to convince them to go in the portal. People are still trying to convince them to leave. If they don't have a coach, I think there's a very good chance a lot of them actually do.